All right, so have you guys heard about this whole thing that kind of blew up online?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It was swearing-in day,
Yeah.
at the start of a new Congress.
Yeah.
Seems like it should be pretty straightforward, right?
You'd think so.
But not so much.
Yeah.
So we're diving into this article today from the Washington Times, and it's called GOP Senator's Husband Goes Viral After Declining to Shake Kamala Harris's Hand.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy, right? I mean, it's just like one of these things where you see it and you're like, no, man. Like,
yeah, how did this even
become a thing?
Right.
It's just wild to me.
It's a classic example, though, right, of how these simple events can just spiral into these huge controversies just because of social media.
Totally. I mean, it's just crazy how fast it happens.
It's like the blink of an eye and suddenly everyone's talking about it.
Like wildfire.
Exactly.
So anyway, so the article kind of sets the stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, Senator Deb Fischer from Nebraska. She's being sworn in for her third term by Vice President Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's, normal procedure, pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. All the usual stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Senator Fischer takes the oath, shakes Harris's hand, very official, all that.
Right.
And then Harris turns to Mr. Fischer.
The senator's husband.
Yeah, the senator's husband, extends her hand and says, "May I give congratulations to you?"
Oh, okay.
And that's when the internet lost its mind.
That's the moment, right?
Right.
Where the clip goes viral.
That's where the clip goes viral.
Mr. Fischer says thank you, but doesn't shake her hand.
Right.
And that's all it took.
Yeah. And, of course, everybody just pounced on it,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Liberal commentators were like,
they were off to the races.
they were after the races, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was just like, they were all over it saying that it was just a huge snub.
Uh-huh.
And they even tied it back to this whole MAGA movement, saying that, this is just typical behavior for people who are, aligned with that.
It's like they were waiting for something like this to happen.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the article talks about how one commentator even said that this was the level of class you can expect from MAGA.
Wow.
It's like, come on.
That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, it's just reaching so far. You know what I mean?
It's like they're looking for any opportunity to just pounce.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it says a lot about just how polarized things have gotten online.
Right.
Everyone's just ready to jump on anything that even remotely confirms their existing biases.
It's not even about the truth anymore. It's just about
Exactly.
scoring points.
Yeah, it's like a game.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous game because it just further divides us.
Right. And we're not even having real conversations anymore.
No, it's just all about...
It's just shouting.
Yeah, shouting past each other.
Exactly.
And not really listening to what the other side is saying.
Yeah. And, I'm just thinking back to the last deep dive we did.
Yeah.
And how often do we actually stop and question the information that we're seeing online?
Right. Do we actually take the time to verify things?
Exactly.
To consider different perspectives?
Right. Are we just kind of accepting everything at face value?
Because it's so easy to get swept up in the emotion of it all.
Oh, totally.
And just react without really thinking things through.
Especially when it confirms something we already believe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's even more dangerous.
It's like confirmation bias.
Exactly.
Gone wild.
Right.
But anyway, in this case, though, it gets even more interesting.
Okay. How so?
So the article talks about how conservative commentators weren't just going to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
They started sharing these stills from another angle.
Oh, interesting.
That showed that Mr. Fischer was actually leaning on a cane.
Okay.
And they were basically arguing that this whole thing was blown way out of proportion because people only saw that initial, deceptively edited clip.
The one that went viral.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're saying it was taken out of context.
Yeah, they're basically saying that it was intentionally framed to make it look like a snub.
That's interesting.
When in reality, maybe he just couldn't shake her hand.
Because of the cane.
Exactly.
That makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely changes things.
It totally changes the whole narrative.
Yeah.
And it's the article even includes a quote from a conservative commentator who's criticizing all the people who kept sharing that original clip even after they knew about the cane.
Right.
It's come on, people, do your research.
It's a perfect illustration of how misinformation can spread.
Yeah.
Even when people have good intentions.
Yeah.
They might not even realize they're sharing something that's misleading.
Totally. And it's just so easy to do that online.
Right.
Because, information travels so fast.
Exactly.
And it's hard to keep up with what's true and what's not.
It's like a constant battle between truth and falsehood.
And, I think it's important to remember, too, that, like, we all have a responsibility in this.
Absolutely.
We can't just be passive consumers of information.
We have to be active participants.
Yeah.
We have to question things.
Be critical.
Think for ourselves.
And be willing to change our minds if we're presented with new evidence.
Exactly.
But, one thing I found, like, particularly interesting about this whole thing.
Okay, what's that?
Is that Senator Fischer's team never, like, publicly addressed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just, like, stayed silent.
That's intriguing.
Right.
It makes you wonder if there's more to the story.
Like, is there something we're missing?
Some piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, like, maybe there's a perfectly good explanation.
That we just don't know.
That never made it into the video or into any of the commentary.
Right, because we're only seeing a tiny sliver of the whole picture.
Right.
And the rest is just speculation.
Yeah, but, that's kind of the point.
Right.
Right? Like, this whole incident is a perfect example of how easy it is to jump to conclusions based on incomplete information.
Especially online.
Especially online.
Where things are so fragmented.
Yeah.
And out of context.
And, it makes you think about, like, how often does this happen?
Right.
Like, in our own lives,
All the time, probably.
Yeah, probably all the time.
We just don't always realize it.
Right, and it's like, what are the consequences of that?
Yeah.
Are we misjudging people?
Potentially.
Are we making decisions based on false information?
It's definitely possible.
It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is.
So, like, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the big takeaway here is just to be more aware.
More mindful.
Yeah, more mindful of how easily we can be misled.
Especially online.
Exactly.
Where the information ecosystem is so complex.
Yeah, and just remember this whole incident with Senator Fischer's husband.
Right.
It's like a case study in how quickly a story can spiral.
And how important it is to be critical.
Be skeptical.
And get all the facts before we form an opinion.
Because, once that opinion is formed,
it's hard to change.
It's really hard to change.
So we have to be careful about what we believe.
Absolutely.
And what we share.
So next time you see something online that, like, makes you want to react immediately, just take a breath.
Step back.
And ask yourself, like, what am I missing here?
What's the other side of the story?
Who benefits from this narrative?
Am I contributing to the problem?
Or am I being part of the solution?
Because ultimately it's up to us
to
create a more informed and responsible online world.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap it up here.
That's good.
So until next time, stay curious.
And stay critical.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you then.